Saturday evening. It had been a busy day at the shop. Ryan Baxter stood on the platform waiting for his train. It was a journey he had been making for a couple of months now, ever since he had got the job in Scene, a shop specializing in clothes for the younger crowd. The train would take him from the city center to his home on the outskirts of town where he lived with his mother, Diane. As he stared around the station platform, watching his fellow travelers go to and fro, he mused on how his life had changed in the last couple of months. No more school, but instead, at 16, he had his first real job. It was not really what he wanted. He had expected to stay on at school, but his desire to help his mom and the family finances meant taking a job as soon as possible. His mom had been upset and protested vehemently, but deep down she knew the extra money would really help. He did enjoy the work, surrounded by young people, dealing with fashion, but, at 16, he was paid minimum wage. But still he was helping his mom pay the bills now, and that made it worthwhile. Maybe in a few years he would be able to return to his education, but for now, needs must. As Ryan glanced up at the station clock to see that he still had a couple of minutes to wait before his train would arrive, he failed to notice a good-looking, well-dressed woman approach him, although his attention was finally drawn to her when she stopped a few feet away and seemingly stared directly at him. Not entirely sure what was happening, Ryan stared back for a few seconds before finding himself compelled to look away and return his gaze to the station clock. After a few seconds he became aware that she was moving beside him, and he became aware that she was going to speak to him. He looked down from the clock, a spontaneous flash of admiration passing through his mind, and waited for her to speak. "Excuse me. I'm sorry for just approaching you like this, but I wonder if I could have a word with you?" The lady in front of him did not seem to present a threatening figure, so he agreed. "Yes, I suppose so. Do you mind if I ask your age first?" Unsure why she asked this or where the conversation was going, Ryan hesitated, but decided to answer anyway. "I'm 16. Ryan looked along the line and saw his train appear. It would be at the platform in another minute. "I'm sorry. I don't know why you would want to speak to me, but my train is just arriving. I've only got a minute." "Okay, I'll be really quick. My name is Susan Grant. Can I give you my business card, please? I run a modeling agency and I'm just about to catch my train home too. I've noticed you a couple of times before, and to be honest, as soon as I first saw you, I knew you could be the person I've been looking for. I believe that there could be a future for you, modeling, with my company. And good money to be earned by both you and my agency. I run a well-known, legitimate agency. Please Google my company or me personally to find out about it and me. If you're comfortable with what you see and are interested to hear what I have to say, please give me a phone and we can arrange to have a longer chat." With that, Ryan's train pulled to a stop at the platform. Ryan stared at the card, not fully understanding what he had just heard, but he decided there was no harm in taking the card anyway. He tried to think of something non-committal in reply. "Okay. I'll give it some thought." And with that, Ryan took the card and boarded his train. As it pulled out of the station, he couldn't help but cast an admiring but puzzled glance at Susan Grant as she headed along the platform, no doubt to catch her own train. The train was busy, but Ryan was lucky, and he found a seat just beside the doors. He sat down and stared at the business card which he still held in his hand and tried to rerun the conversation he had just had with Susan Grant. Something about modeling he remembered, and despite himself, he began to think that maybe there could be some extra money in this for him and his mom. Ryan's basic mobile phone was no good for the internet, so at the moment he was unable to investigate Susan Grant or her company, so eventually, baffled but intrigued, he put the card in his jacket pocket and decided to wait till he got home where he could use the house laptop and Wi-Fi to find out a little more. "How did your day go?" Diane Baxter shouted to her son as he came through the door. Their home was a small, unpretentious, but neat and tidy flat in a low-rise block. She was not long in from her own work, in the offices of a small building company, and had just began preparing dinner. Fine. He had planned to do some research first, but he couldn't stop himself spilling some of his story from his journey home. Although something odd happened at the railway station when I was waiting for the train to come home. Diane immediately had a flicker of concern. Something odd might mean something not good, but as she looked at Ryan, he did not seem upset or stressed in any way, so, as that feeling subsided, she asked, "What was that then?" Ryan smiled at his mom. "Give me some time to check a few things out on the net, will you? And then I'll tell you. Don't worry. It's nothing bad." And with that he grabbed the laptop from where it lay on the kitchen table and headed for his bedroom. He placed the business card in front of him and checked the name once again for an accurate search. The agency was called Top Class Models, and Ryan typed this into the search box and added the name of his hometown. In an instant, right at the top of the search results, was the link that took him to the company website. Immediately he could see it was a very professional and slick site, and after reading about their history, the type of customers they serviced, their ethos, testimonials, and then seeing pictures of their models and creative staff, he was convinced Top Class Models was indeed a thriving and respectable concern. A further search of Susan Grant revealed some interviews and reviews on business websites and links back to her agency. An image search even showed him pictures of the woman he had met that late afternoon. Ryan guessed that she would be in her mid to late 30s, and looking through the pictures, he thought that she could easily be one of the agency's models herself. At that, he heard his mom shout, "Dinner is on the table. Come on and tell me about this odd thing that happened at the station. You've got me intrigued." Ryan walked through to the kitchen where his mom had set 2 bowls of spaghetti bolognese on the small table. He sat down opposite his mom and pushed the business card across the table. "I was standing on the platform when this lady," he nodded at the card, "came up to me and said that she thought that I could do some modeling for her company. She gave me this card and asked me to give her a call if I was interested." Diane's first thought that Ryan was not the vision of a male model that immediately sprung to her mind. He was slim-built and fresh-faced and with his longish shoulder-length, muddy blonde hair, and not exactly macho. But guiltily, she quickly realized there was all types of modeling that required all types of people to do it. Did she say what she had in mind? Give you any more information? No, not really. There wasn't any time. My train had arrived and was at the platform. I do remember her saying something about me being able to make good money, and that's not something we could afford to ignore. Oh, I'm not sure about this. I've just done some research on the agency and Susan Grant, and everything seems to be totally legit and professional. Mom, I don't see what I have to lose just giving her a call. If there is some extra money to be made, it would be stupid not to at least think about it. Let me show you their website." No more was said for a few minutes as they finished their food, then Ryan fetched the laptop and found Top Class Models. Diane scrolled through the various pages of the site and turned to Ryan. "Yes, I agree. It looks like a proper, well-run agency. I guess it's up to you. Like you said, I don't suppose there is anything to be lost by making a phone call. Okay, I'll give her a call when I get to work tomorrow." Being the junior member of staff, Ryan worked 6 days a week, including Sunday. Monday was generally his only full day off. His mom, on the other hand, worked Monday to Friday and Saturday morning till 12 p.m. It meant that, at present, they had little time during the day together. But it allowed them to survive, just. The rest of the evening they watched some television. No more was said about Top Class Models, though both of them wondered privately what if anything would come of tomorrow's call. Early Sunday morning was quiet in the shop, but Ryan waited for his first break at 10:30 a.m. to give the agency a call. There was 2 numbers on the business card. One he guessed was for the agency and the other, which was a mobile number, he assumed was Susan Grant's own phone. He wasn't sure if he would get a reply on a Sunday morning, but he decided to try the agency number first. Almost immediately his call was answered by a female voice. "Good morning. Top class models. Can I help you?" "Hello. My name is Ryan Baxter. I met Susan Grant and she gave me her card and asked me to phone her if I was interested in having a chat about some possible modeling she had in mind. I was wondering if she was available to have a word with at the moment?" "Yes. She is in her office. Hold on a second, will you, and I'll find out if she can speak to you now. And after a few more seconds, I'll put you through to her now." "Hello, it's Susan Grant." Ryan repeated his introduction. "Hello. My name is Ryan Baxter. We met at the railway station yesterday and you asked me to give you a call if I was interested in having a longer chat with you about some modeling you had in mind. I wasn't sure if I would be able to contact you on a Sunday, but, well, I thought I'd try and give you a call anyway." Yes, of course. I'm really glad to hear from you so soon. I'm glad you called. And, by the way, a model agency is not a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday kind of place, so yes, I can often be found here, along with other staff, at the most unsocial times. Anyway, I'm hoping that since you've called me that you're interested in trying your hand at modeling. Well, I'm interested to hear what you have in mind. I looked at your website last night, then talked it over with my mother and we both decided that I should at least give you a call. That's good to hear. I didn't expect to hear from you so soon. Obviously we didn't have enough time to establish if you were even interested or not, but I'm certainly glad you called. Also that you've spoken to your mother about this. That's good. Well, to be honest, if there's a chance that I can earn a little extra money, it's something we have to consider. You said a little extra money. Do you have a job already? Yes, I work in Scene, a clothes shop. I'm actually there now. I'm on my morning break. But I don't earn much, and since it's just my mom and me, any extra money would be a help. I know Scene. You're just about a 20-minute walk through town to our offices. Listen, I have an idea. Is your mother working today? Is she available? She does work, but she's at home just now. Maybe only out for some shopping. When do you finish this afternoon? We close at 5 on a Sunday. How about you come to my office after work? And if possible, I would like to send a taxi to collect your mother from your home and bring her here. I think it would be good if she could be here too. What do you think? I'd like that too, but I'd have to give her a call to check if that's all okay with her. You do that. And if everything is okay, you can call me back, give me your address, and I can get the taxi arranged. Do that now and get back to me as soon as you can. A call to his mom to check if she was happy with their arrangements, a return call to top class models to confirm that she was in sort out times, another call to his mom to let her know when to expect to be picked up, and everything was arranged. He had used up all his break. It was time to get back to work. Sunday was a busy day in Scene, but in the few moments Ryan had time to think, he surprised himself by how excited he was becoming about this meeting and he was beginning to clock watch, waiting for closing time. But eventually closing time did arrive and Ryan set off for the top-class model agency. He knew the city center well and after a short walk he came to a 4-story building he had seen and walked by many times before, but only now did he look at the bronze plaques at the entrance door, one of which pronounced that top-class model agency was on the 2nd floor. He walked past a couple of elevators, found the stairs, and climbed to the 2nd floor. He soon found the agency door, entered and was faced with a reception desk at which sat the girl who he assumed had taken his call that morning. Good evening. Can I help you? My name is Ryan Baxter. I'm here to see Susan Grant. Yes, of course. I'll let her know you're here. She pointed behind Ryan to a seated area that had not been visible to him as he entered. Your mother just arrived a few minutes before you. Will you take a seat over there please, and Susan will be with you both as soon as possible. Thank you. Ryan turned to see his mother seated on a comfortable-looking settee, walked over, and sat down beside her. They barely had time to say their hellos when Susan Grant appeared at the head of a corridor and walked over to meet them. She spoke to Diane first. Hello. You must be Ryan's mom. I'm Susan Grant, though Susan will do. Diane, isn't it? Yes, it is. Nice to meet you, Susan. Susan turned to Ryan. Good to see you again, Ryan. She pointed back to the corridor. Come on. My office is just down here. Let's go and have that chat. Ryan and his mom followed Susan to a largish, well-appointed, modern office that had a large glass window looking out over the city center street below. In a corner there was 2 3-seater settees facing each other with a coffee table between them. Susan headed for one of the settees and motioned Ryan and Diane to take a seat opposite. Can I get you a tea, coffee, soft drink, anything like that? Both Ryan and Diane declined, and Susan began by checking that Diane's taxi journey had gone as planned. After a few more pleasantries, and still talking to Diane, Susan asked, I'm sorry if this is rude, please tell me if it is, but I'm kind of getting the vibe that it's just the two of you. No brothers or sisters. She did not want to say anything about a father, but Diane quickly answered her question. Yes, it's just the two of us. The reply was said pleasantly and in a matter-of-fact fashion, but no explanation about Ryan's father was offered by Diane, and it wasn't mentioned again. Eventually, the talk turned to subject at the center of their meeting. Susan's eyes darted between Ryan and Diane as she attempted to speak to them together. Right. Let me get to the reason we are here. What I'm going to say to you is a little unusual, but I would like if you would hear me out, then please, feel free to ask any questions you have. I don't know if you follow the modeling world at all, but there is now a certain type of model that is very much in fashion at the moment. Have you heard of, for example, Andrei Pajic? He's taking the modeling world by storm, and there are others in the same genre following right behind. They are a new, and I think, lasting phenomenon. They are what's being called androgynous or gender-fluid models. They are essentially attractive males who are also able to show themselves and model as female. They usually model androgynous fashions, that's clothes that are both for male or female, or completely feminine woman's fashion. I believe that you, Ryan, have that look. I have been looking for someone that I think could do this type of modeling for some time, and I believe I have found him in you, Ryan. You are tall, slender, and have the facial bone structure and fresh-faced complexion that, along with your hair, gives you the exact qualities that I think would work for this type of modeling. Ryan and Diane turned and looked at each other, a stunned look upon both their faces. Ryan spoke first. You mean you would want me to model as a girl? He asked, emphasizing the last 3 words. Let me go on. In most cases, the model is always known to be a boy, but portrays elements of both boy and girl, and it's the fact that it's a boy that is carrying off this feminine look that adds mystery and fascination to the clothes that some customers love. Some see their clothes as gender fluid, so someone who appears to be comfortable as both male and female suits them precisely. But what I see for you is a little different. I want people who see you in a picture or even possibly on a catwalk to see only a girl. Yes, they will know it's a boy, be aware of that fact, but their eyes will make them question this belief. There is a niche opening up in modeling right now and clients wanting this type of model. I believe you have the qualities, with a little coaching, to do this and to do it well. Here, let me show you something. Susan turned her attention to the laptop on her desk. Just let me open this folder. Let's see. Slideshow. This is what I'm talking about. She turned the laptop towards Ryan and Diane, who watched a succession of pictures of males modeling various clothes from the gender-neutral to the outright feminine. Some of the models retained masculine features, even beards, while still showing femininity, while others were totally pretty boys who passed easily as girls. There was headshots of boys in full makeup looking absolutely feminine and beautiful. Susan turned the laptop again. That's the kind of thing I have in mind for Ryan. Makeup companies are also using this avenue of promotion. Diane sat silently, trying to organize her thoughts. The first thing that crossed her mind was that just 6 months ago Ryan had attended his doctor, embarrassed and concerned about the swelling around his upper chest that appeared to give him small breasts. The doctor had examined him and told him that he had gynecomastia, and that this swelling was not unusual in young males, although more commonly, but not exclusively, in obese males. He had been told that this condition normally resolves itself in the late teens and that there was nothing to do at present. He had relayed this information to his mom and little more was said or thought about it. But now, somehow, when you added the fact that someone saw Ryan as a feminine-looking boy, she was upset with herself that she should think it, but this seemed like another blow on her son's masculinity. And, she guiltily admitted to herself, she had, on occasion, wondered if her son might be gay. He had many female friends, but so far had shown no inclination or desire to have a relationship with any of them. No crushes whatsoever. To be honest, neither had he shown any signs that he was attracted to boys, but yes, it had crossed her mind. She had always known her son was extremely good-looking. It was what many people had commented to her. But she had never thought about his looks in a feminine way. Maybe those who commented actually meant something else. Maybe they saw a pretty boy and her closeness to him stopped her from seeing that. She had read a couple of articles in her magazines about these androgynous models, but not for a second did she see her son looks in the same way. But now, for the first time, after listening to Susan, she turned to look at her son and was shocked to see that although the Ryan she knew was seated beside her, she could see what Susan meant. There was a certain beauty to his boyish good looks. But still, he was a boy. She turned to face Susan once more, who started talking again to break the silence. Look, I know this must be a lot for you to take in, and don't get me wrong, if you decide to try this there would be consequences and some sacrifices to make. At the moment you have 0 facial hair and I'm guessing not much body hair either. Hopefully, with your coloring, neither of these will get too heavy and dark, but both of these would need to kept under control either with laser or electrolysis on your face and waxing etc. on your body. You would need to keep your weight at least similar to what it is now and keep your hair long. Keep your fingernails nice and a decent length. You would at all times need to be available as model Ryan. To be honest, many, if not most, of the boys I've shown you before, perhaps already naturally had, or had already mastered many of skills required to portray themselves as female. These are skills you are going to have to learn and master. And, she added with a smile, you would need to learn to walk in heels. Diane turned to her son again. Ryan, what on earth are you thinking about this? I don't know. I'm not sure what I was expecting to hear today, but I know it wasn't this. I guess I thought it might be for a clothing catalog, or a still picture for an advertisement or something like that, but this wow. Susan pressed on. What I can say is, if you're successful at this it can be very lucrative for both you, and to be honest, us here at the agency too. Androgynous modeling is definitely all the rage at the moment. Is it just a trend? To be absolutely honest, I don't know for sure, but now that it's here I think it's here to stay, and I certainly don't see it passing anytime soon. Again, I don't mean to be rude, but I'm guessing that it can be quite tough financially for you both, and, Ryan, I believe that if you're successful, there are life-changing sums of money to be earned by you. You really think I can do this? Ryan asked Susan. I do, Ryan. Mom? I don't know what to think. Her mind was in a state of confusion. Memories began to force themselves to the forefront of Diane's mind. Memories that had long since slipped from her thoughts but were now resurfacing again. Of a young Ryan, 7 or 8 at the time, paying more than a little interest to his mother's beauty routine. Asking questions about what she was doing and why. Why do ladies wear makeup and not men? That's not fair, is it? And another time, why do ladies get to have longer hair and do nicer things with it? He had been insistent that he didn't want his hair cut and she had allowed him to let it grow. Once she had caught him with her lipstick on. But she had put all this down to childhood inquisitiveness. After all, he did live solely with a female. And barring his keeping his hair longer, these events seemed to pass and had slipped to the back of her mind and been forgotten. Until now. Ryan spoke and snapped her back to the present. If I said yes and wanted to give it a try, what would happen then? What we would do at the agency is quickly arrange a private shoot in the studio we have here in the floor above. Before you leave here today, one of the staff would take some body measurements from you. Get your shoe size. Stuff like that. In fact, even though you may need to talk this over together before coming to a decision, if we could do that anyway, we'll be ahead of the game if you decide to go ahead. I hope that shoot would confirm to me that you have what I'm looking for. I'm pretty sure that it will. It would also give you a feeling for how comfortable you are in this role. If we both are happy and want to continue, you would sign for the agency and we would pay you a one-off moderate retainer. Susan mentioned a sum which was double what Ryan earned in a year at Scene. These photographs would make up your first portfolio and we would then set about getting you paid work for which we would take a previously agreed percentage commission. How does that sound? It was Diane's turn to speak. This is an awful lot to take in and make a decision about. Again, Susan took the lead. Listen. I don't expect you to give me an answer right now. Go home, take some time, discuss it between the two of you and then get back to me. Just remember the iron is hot right now. Don't leave it too long if you want to strike. Is there anything else you would like to ask? I've still got my job at Scene. I work 6 days a week with only Monday off. If I were to go ahead with this, how is that going to work? Okay, then we would arrange the shoot on a Monday. After we've done our bit, I think we will both have feeling for how it might go. I hope we would reach a point where you would have to make a decision about taking on modeling full-time. Meantime, I'd hope the retainer would smooth any transition necessary. Now I'm just going to get someone organized for those measurements. She made a quick call. Ryan and the two women then swapped some pleasantries, and despite protestations that they would take the train, Susan insisted organizing another taxi to take them home. She walked Ryan and Diane back to the reception, informed them that she had some work to finish in her office, and that she too was shortly about to head home. They said their goodbyes. A young girl who had been waiting at the reception informed Ryan and his mom that she just needed to borrow Ryan for a few minutes. The woman took Ryan into a small office and quickly got the measurements required, returned Ryan to his mom and told them the taxi would now be waiting. The taxi had no partition between the driver and Ryan and his mom in the back seats, so they agreed to wait until they got home before discussing the decision to be made after their surprising meeting. Back home, Diane popped the macaroni cheese she had prepared in the afternoon into the oven. Strangely, Ryan found himself briefly questioning if macaroni cheese was an appropriate dinner for someone trying to watch their weight, but quickly realized how stupid he was being. This was part of the mixed diet his mom put on the table and it had given him the build he had today. Beside, not only would saying something about his mum's meal not be well received, he also loved macaroni cheese. In the taxi home, he had began to think of what direction their conversation might take, and he didn't want his mum to think that if he proceeded with the modeling, it was causing problems straight away. They sat down at the kitchen and each helped themselves to some of the mac cheese. "Mom, I think that I should give this a go." "Oh, Ryan, I'm really not sure. I'm finding it hard to think of you wearing female clothes, wearing makeup, presenting yourself as a girl. It would be like acting, Mum. For a short while I would be a different character, then I would back to being me. But what about the facial hair thing? Surely you would have no facial hair? Would that not look unnatural?" "Mom, I have no facial hair at all at the moment. Lots of the boys I went to school with are starting to show growth now. I'm not. Maybe, as Susan said, I won't be someone who has lots of facial hair. I'd just look like someone who likes to keep clean shaven." Ryan smiled. "And if I have to have some sort of treatment, think of all the time I'll save in my life by not shaving, and think of the money I'll save on shaving products. It's just so strange. The way I look at it is, I do the first shoot. I'm no good." Story ends. Or Susan likes what she sees, I can handle it, she asks me to sign and I immediately have the same as 2 years' wages from Scene. "Mom, that's money we could with. The work doesn't come my way, I've still been paid the retainer. The work does come my way, then I'll be earning what Susan said could be life-changing money, even if it's only for a short while. It all comes down to money, and I don't think we have anything to lose, Ryan. We are not desperate for money. We get by." "Yes, Mom, we get by. But this might be the answer to us just getting by. I want to do it for us. Also, at the moment, we have no daytime together. We only see each other morning and nights. And I hardly get a chance to see any of my friends, again only in the evening. This might be a chance to make things a little different. It's just I don't like the idea of you doing something that's uncomfortable for you just to provide us with extra money. Please, Mum, agree to let me try this and I'll give her a call tomorrow." He smiled again. "Nothing to lose. Okay, but you need to be able and willing to stop if you're not happy." "Fine. I promise." Monday was an odd day for Ryan. It was his only day off, but his mother was at work and almost all his friends were still at school, so after doing some chores around the house, he often found himself at a loose end. He often thought that he would be just as well working Monday too. But this Monday he had a phone call to make. He was anxious to make the call but didn't want to call too early in the day in case it made him look over keen. But at around 11 o'clock he could wait no longer. This time, however, Susan was busy and he had to leave his number and await a return call when she became free. Having built himself up to having the conversation with Susan, this delay was a little frustrating and he watched some morning television while repeatedly looking at his phone, waiting for the return call. But eventually, nearer 12 o'clock his phone rang. "Am I speaking to Ryan Baxter?" "Yes. Susan Grant for you." "Hello, Ryan. Sorry about the delay. Busy Monday morning. Are you enjoying your day off?" "Bit bored actually. Maybe read a little in the afternoon." "Okay. I take you and your mom had a chat last night." "We did. And did you decide what you're going to do?" "Yes, and I'd like to go ahead with the shoot if that's all right." "Sure, that's good news. I'm glad you're going to at least do that. Now let me think. Monday is your only day off, so how about a week today?" "That'll be fine." "Good. I'll be out of town on business from tomorrow through till the weekend, but I'll inform Talia Banks, she's one of our shoot coordinators, to set things up for then. She'll be in charge." "What do I need to do?" You just have to turn up here looking exactly as you normally do, say, at 9.30. I would say give your hair a wash the day before, but I can see you know how to look after your hair. We'll do everything else. How's that? All good. Look forward to seeing you next Monday then. Bye, Ryan. Bye. Ryan put the phone down, and it crossed his mind that he had just agreed to a potentially lucrative career move, or an embarrassing way to look ridiculous and make a fool of himself. It was a lovely day, so he decided to get out of the flat and walk to and round the local park, his mind constantly turning over the events of the last couple of days. Arriving back at the flat, something Susan had said and which he had been thinking about during his walk, caused him to do something that he would never have done just last Friday. He went into his mom's bedroom, opened a sliding mirrored door on the fitted wardrobe in which Diane put her clothes that required to be hung. On the wardrobe floor there was several pairs of shoes, including 3 pairs of dress-heeled shoes, 1 black, 1 a dark tan and 1 red. He took one of each of them out and examined them. He checked the size and saw that all 3 were a half size smaller than his own shoe size. The tan and red shoes had heels he guessed were about 3 inches in height, the black ones slightly higher. Maybe 3.5 to 4 inches. He took out the other red shoe and carried them over to his mom's bed, where he sat down. He removed the right canvas plimsoll he had on and took off his sock. He took the shoe and slid his toes in, then tried to pull the back over his heel. It was tight, but with a little push his heel slid in. He repeated the procedure with the left shoe. He turned up the bottom of his jeans, rose, and took his first unsteady steps in heels. He walked back towards the full-length mirror on the wardrobe door slowly, concentrating on his balance. The shoes were tight, but not impossibly so, and he made it to the mirror where he looked down to see his feet in heels. It was such a strange vision. He stared a little longer before making some steps around the bedroom and into the hall. He was just managing. Suddenly, a wave of guilt swept over him. It dawned on him that this was invading his mom's space, using something of hers without her permission. He walked back into the bedroom, suddenly also concerned that perhaps he was damaging his mom's shoes and she would be able to tell that they had been worn by someone other than herself. He quickly removed the shoes, examining them for any evidence that they were not the same as he had found them, but fortunately they seemed undamaged, and he returned all the shoes to the bottom of the wardrobe. He left the room feeling guilty but also wishing he could have worn the heels a little longer. He walked to the kitchen. It being Monday, the roles were reversed and it was his turn to begin getting dinner ready for when his mom arrived home. The rest of the week went slowly for Ryan. He had quickly become accustomed to his 6 working days a week routine, so the prospect of something new and different on the horizon was both exciting and a little scary. He met up with a group of male and female friends at a local club on the Wednesday evening, but decided not to tell them about his new venture. Not at this point anyway. On a couple of evenings he sat with the laptop and researched to try and better understand the androgynous model scene. Some of the boys were so girl-like, it really was hard to see the boy behind the female facade. One thing he noticed was that in almost all the photographs the models did not smile. It appeared a serious face was required. Ryan found it absolutely weird that there was someone who saw, in him, the same properties that these boys had. Should he be annoyed or embarrassed that this was the case? He discovered, to his own surprise, that he was neither. The only thing that made him a little uncomfortable were the pictures where the model was bare-chested. It crossed his mind how strange it was that the girlish condition which had caused him some embarrassment as a boy might be a problem as he tried to be an androgynous model. Perhaps he should have mentioned this to Susan. Would it be a problem? Maybe not. He tried to put it to the back of his mind. On several occasions he found himself in front of the bathroom mirror trying to see what Susan saw in him. He tried to imagine what he may look like next Monday. How would they make him look? What would he look like given the full makeup works that he had seen given to some of the boys on his laptop? But he could only see himself. He was going to have to wait. Eventually Monday morning arrived. He sat with his mom as they both had cereal for breakfast. "Are you nervous?" "I'm nervous and excited at the same time. I don't really know what to expect this morning, and I don't know if I'll be able to give them what they want. I want to succeed, and I'll be disappointed if I don't, but life is going to be so different if I do well." Ryan smiled. "To be honest, I'm trying to think of it as just something new and different to do on my day off." They both left the flat at the same time. Diane got a lift to work from one of her coworkers. Ryan headed for the train station. In his enthusiasm not to be late, he found himself outside Top Class Models at 9 o'clock, and he had to wander around a couple of newly opened shops to kill time, but at 9:20 he could wait no longer and headed up the stairs to the agency reception. He introduced himself to the receptionist and soon found himself sitting in the waiting area once more, watching people pass through the reception, hearing the phone ring, the general office to and fro. After what seemed like an eternity, but was only around 10 minutes, one of the staff who entered reception headed toward him. She was a slim, pretty girl with short hair and glasses. Although he had observed some people in business clothes, she, like most people he saw, was casually dressed, in her case, blouse, jeans and flat shoes. "Hello. I'm Talia Banks. You must be Ryan." "That's me. I'm really pleased to meet you, Ryan. Are you okay this morning?" "A little nervous, but fine, thanks." "I understand. I'm going to be in charge of your shoot this morning. I know this will be completely new to you, but just try and relax and enjoy the experience. Everyone involved is very professional. We will help you. Okay?" "Okay." Talia smiled. "That having said, this is the first shoot of this nature in our studio, so it's a first for a couple more of us at the agency. As you know, we are hoping you will be our first androgynous model on our books. The good news is that my assistant and the photographer have previous experience in this field, and I have spoken to some friends in the business for advice, so I'm certain we'll do fine. Anyway, come to my little office and we can have a chat before we begin." Talia led Ryan to her office and gestured to him to sit down on yet another two-seater settee. She sat down beside him. "Listen, Ryan. My biggest piece of advice to any first-timer is not to be embarrassed about using and showing your body. It is your asset. It is the tool of your trade. You will be seen barely clothed and perhaps even naked by people you barely know or don't know at all. That will happen today. We're actually going to throw you in the deep end. There will be many things that you have never experienced before. But you have to know, and to be honest, we need to know, if these are experiences you can live with. You cannot afford to be too self-conscientious. That will show in the photographs. But we know that can take a little time to achieve, so just let us help you through this. As I said before, relax and enjoy. We have everything set up in our studio. Today is low-key, so there will only be Dawn, for makeup and hair, Lynn, my assistant, to help me get you dressed and change clothes between shots etc., and Andrew the photographer. We'll probably only have 2 or maybe 3 changes and we should be finished sometime in the afternoon, so come on, let's go." Ryan followed Talia up a further flight of stairs and along a short corridor that led to the studio door. Halfway down the corridor she stopped beside a door with the traditional sign that designated a male toilet. "I think you had better use this now." And to Ryan's puzzled expression, "You'll find out why shortly." After his visit they continued down the corridor and through the door into the studio. Ryan looked around and tried to take in his surroundings. It was basically a pretty empty rectangular box, but at one end there were lights on stands of various heights, what looked like silver foil umbrellas and a couple of single-color backdrops hung in front of the wall. The photographer, Andrew, was milling about, getting himself organized. As Talia led him over towards a corner where a chair sat before a mirror on the wall, two women whom he took to be Dawn and Lynn walked over to meet them. Talia did the introductions. "Girls, this is Ryan. He is our model for today." They both greeted Ryan with, "Hello Ryan," and friendly smiles. Dawn was yet another young, good-looking girl, with what Ryan thought to be a slightly punk appearance. Lynn was a bit older, however. Still a handsome woman. Ryan thought she would be about the same age as his mom, who was 44. Perhaps a little older still. Looking at Ryan, Talia spoke again. "Ryan, I want you to go with Lynn just now, just to get out of your boy clothes and put on a dressing gown, then you'll come back to see Dawn." Lynn led Ryan over to a curtained-off area in one of the studio's corners. When they entered, he saw there was a couple of chairs, a rack on wheels on which some clothes were hanging, and a full-length mirror, also on wheels. He wondered if the rack held the clothes that he would be wearing and tried to see what they were, but Lynn began speaking and drew his attention from the rack. "I believe Talia may have said something to you already, but just to repeat, I've been in the fashion business all my working life and I've seen hundreds and hundreds of bodies, and that includes male ones. There's nothing I haven't seen. So, although it's not going to be easy for you at first, for me to do my job, I will see a lot of you." She finished with a smile and a knowing raise of her eyebrows. "I get it," replied Ryan. "There is one thing though." He had been undecided as to whether he should bring up his gynecomastia beforehand or just let events take their course, but he felt that this was perhaps the right time to mention it. This lady was going to see it anyway. "Can I just tell you something? I'm a little bit embarrassed about this, but since you said you will be seeing me topless, etc., I might as well get it over with. You see, I have gynecomastia. My doctor told me this is not an uncommon complaint in young boys, but I'd rather tell you now in case it creates any issues. Sorry, I'm not sure what that is. It's a swelling of breast tissue which gives boys small breasts. It's been quite embarrassing for me, but it should settle down on own, I hope. It's a puberty thing." Lynn was only slightly taken aback, but realized that perhaps she had not seen everything after all. "Oh, I see. Well, why don't you strip down to your waist first and we'll see what you were talking about." Ryan did as he asked and was soon standing topless in front of Lynn. In his mind, he was repeating the phrase, "Don't be embarrassed, get used to this," over and over again. Yes, I can see what you mean and I can understand that for a young boy it's a big deal, but it really isn't that pronounced. I really don't think that it's going to be an issue at all here. In fact, now I think about it, it may be positively advantageous. So let's just carry on. I need you to strip down completely and then we're going to put this on." She produced a pair of flesh-colored pants that, once on, would stretch from above his waist to his upper thighs. These are very similar to a lady's tummy shaper. Other boys I have worked with use these to give shape, but mainly to flatten out their genitals. They have strong elastic at the front. "Can't have any unsightly bulges, you know," she said with a smile. Ryan stripped further down and was soon fully naked in front of Lynn. He wondered if his mom had realized that this may be a possibility when they were discussing whether to go ahead with this. He resolved not to tell her absolutely everything about the day's events. "Well done, Ryan. You've overcome your first hurdle. Do you need to go to the toilet?" Ryan was puzzled once more, but answered no. Lynn smiled again. "It's just this is a garment you don't want to be pulling up and down too often. So let's get them on." He put one foot then the other in the garment and began to pull it up. "It's very tight. Is it meant to be like this?" "Yes." Once it's on, it will hold you nicely in place. I'll give you a hand. After a bit of a struggle, with Lynn tugging up from the rear and Ryan at the front, the shaping pants were in place. He now understood why an empty bladder was required, but wondered how long it would be before he would need to pull the pants down again. He hoped not too soon. You need to reach down and tuck your bits between your legs. Pardon? Like this. And Lynn demonstrated with her hands the action Ryan should take. She gave further advice, her use of language deliberately designed to let Ryan know that body parts were not something he could afford to be shy about. Ryan put his hand down pants and, following instruction, pushed everything back between his legs. He pulled his hand back out, looked down, and was surprised at how much the strong elastic was holding everything in. It almost looked like they were gone. It was also noticeable that he now had a narrower waist in relation to his thighs. It's quite uncomfortable. Yes, but I believe you can get used to it quite quickly. Actually, I know it's possible to push your testicles back inside your body and then use tape to flatten everything, to give absolutely the best effect possible, but I think for now that will be fine. She pulled a dressing gown-style robe from a hanger on the rack. Right, now I need you to put this on and go back to Dawn and she'll work her magic on you. So, barefooted and wearing only the robe and pants, he returned to the makeup station where Dawn was sitting on the chair chatting to a standing Talia. Talia saw him coming first and speaking to Dawn said, "Here he is. I'll leave you to it. I'll go and have a word with Lynn." And with that she headed towards the changing area. Dawn stood up, gestured towards the chair and said, "Take a seat. How are you doing so far?" The first time is pretty scary, I guess. He sat down and was immediately aware that his boy parts were not in the position they would normally be. It was uncomfortable, but not unbearably so. Just a bit, yes. Dawn looked at Ryan straight in the face for several seconds and he was uncomfortably aware that he was being assessed by a beautician. After a few seconds Dawn spoke. "I can absolutely see where Talia is coming from. I think you could carry off some really interesting looks. Terrific hair with a bit of length. No facial hair to contend with, at least for now. Lovely long lashes. Maybe just a little tidy up of your eyebrows. Nothing that you can't live with when we're finished today, honestly. Is that okay?" Realizing that he could hardly say no at this point, Ryan agreed. Dawn was experienced enough to know that a little conversation would be helpful in calming Ryan's obvious nerves, and despite herself, Dawn could not suppress her curiosity about the boy she was about to make over. "So how is it you find yourself sitting in this chair having your hair and makeup done?" Ryan related the story of how Susan Grant had approached him at the station and of the events thereafter. Wow. So it really was the classic model story of being discovered on the street. Well, I don't know if I've been discovered exactly. Susan needs to like what she sees today. Take my word, Talia is a great shoot manager and Andrew is a fantastic photographer, and I guarantee that between them and Lynn and I, we'll get something to keep Susan happy. I hope so. Okay. Ryan, from here on, I'm looking at you as a girl, a female model, so prepare to be made up as one. Ryan took an involuntary gasp as he tried to take in what he had just been told. First of all, I'm going to do something with your hair. We can do the makeup when your hair is off your face. She ran her fingers through Ryan's hair. The color is a bit in-betweeny, but the length and condition really good, so we've decided we want some feminine curls and waves, so I'm going to set your hair with some rollers. Dawn smiled. I think you're about to find out how much effort it takes for a girl to look her best. But at least you'll have some, and if I say so myself, expert help. Ryan then knew things were about to get real. He had seen his mum occasionally have her hair in rollers, but now this most feminine of routines was about to happen to him. In all the scenarios he had thought about over the last week, somehow, this had not been one of them. But he had made the decision to give this his best shot, while also knowing that he would be exposing himself to the ways of female life, so he realized he was just going to have to go with the flow. Dawn moved a wheeled trolley a little closer to Ryan's chair. Conscious that this was Ryan's first time in the makeup chair and sensing his nervousness, she explained what she was going to do. "I'm just going to wet your hair a little before I put the rollers in. Hopefully by the time you have had your makeup done and have dressed, they will be ready to come out." She took a comb and ran it through Ryan's hair, at the same time spraying a mist of water from a bottle. She was impressed by the condition of his hair and how free of tangles it was. "I wish all the models I see came to me with hair like this." "You obviously look after your hair," Ryan responded quietly. "I try." He was aware of the sensation of another person touching his hair. He had not had a haircut for many years, barring his mum trimming the length every so often, so it was indeed a novel and strange feeling. As if she was reading Ryan's mind, Dawn continued. "So when was the last time you had your haircut?" "In a hairdresser's?" "I really can't remember. My mum took me when I was little, but not for a long time for sure." Dawn began her beautification process. With Ryan watching in the mirror in front of him, using her comb, she separated a section of Ryan's hair at the front of his head, and holding it vertically at its full height, took a mesh roller and placed it at the end of the strand and began rolling it down the strand till it met with Ryan's scalp. Holding it in place, she took a plastic pin from the tray and angled it through the roller to secure it firmly in place. A second or two later, Dawn took another strand beside the original and repeated the process. She began chatting to Ryan, general chat about his life and family, whilst also working quickly but precisely, till, within minutes, there was 10 rollers firmly pinned to the top of Ryan's head. Below this activity, Ryan sat, trying to make sense of his thoughts and emotions. He had seen his mum set her hair in rollers and understood it was an important part of many women's beauty regime. But here he was, undergoing, and watching in the mirror, the same feminine process. He had felt the tension on his scalp as Dawn had taken the first strand, the roller gathering his hair and then resting against his scalp, and the tension created when it was pinned. He could scarcely believe this was happening to him. As the second roller was placed, he suddenly became acutely aware of a growing pressure against the tight control pants, causing mild panic, but also a curiosity in his mind as to why that should be happening to him. But he had had no time to think about this, because as Dawn had continued to set his hair, she had began chatting to him, and as he answered her questions and chatted to her, he began to relax and he realized the anxiety-producing pressure he had felt was no longer a problem. Instead, it had been replaced by a different feeling. A warm and entirely unexpected feeling. What was happening to him was nice. He was still a little nervous, but he was actually beginning to enjoy the experience of having his hair set. The physical sensation of his hair being rolled in Dawn's presence, touch and verbal interaction were all combining to give Ryan a sensation, feeling and experience unlike anything he had ever felt before. As Ryan continued to observe in the mirror, Dawn used another 6 rollers on each side of Ryan's head. Stopping for a second, and talking to Ryan's mirror image rather than Ryan himself, she smiled and commented candidly, "You know, we haven't even started on makeup yet, but just the rollers framing your face already makes you look really sexy and femme." Ryan swallowed hard but could not think of anything to say in reply. Asking Ryan to tilt his head forward slightly, she worked at the back of his head, till eventually he felt the hair at the nape of his neck being combed out and rollers placed and secured. She announced that she had finished setting his hair and tried to catch Ryan's eye in the mirror once more. Instead, she saw him staring at his reflection, and realizing that unlike almost every model she had ever worked with, this was a vision her model would never have seen before, she asked him if he would like to see the back too. She took another handheld mirror and held it above and behind Ryan's head, allowing him to see the complete roller set. "What do you think?" You now have 30 rollers working to give you some nice waves and curls. Now that Dawn had finished the set, Ryan was able to fully look at the image in the mirror for the first time, while also glancing at the smaller mirror in Dawn's hands. He could hardly take it in. As Dawn had said, the rollers meant that there appeared to be a young teenage girl staring back at Ryan. They had somehow further feminized his features. Again, struggling for words, he could only reply, "It's a strange feeling on my head. The tension. The tightness." Dawn could only reply, "Well, I guess most young girls with longer hair will have had rollers in their hair at some point in their lives, but for you, well, I'm sure it does feel strange." She took a can of hairspray and liberally sprayed the set, the sweet smell picked up by Ryan. Always feeling that she needed to keep Ryan informed as to what was happening, "I'm just going to net your hair to help keep it all in place while we do your makeup." She placed a pink net over the set and tied it at the nape of his neck. "It's time to have a look at those eyebrows now." She took a pair of tweezers from a tray and asked Ryan to tilt back his head. He felt the first sharp tug and involuntarily jerked his head. "Oops. Sorry. Almost forgot that you won't have experienced plucking your eyebrows before. Don't worry, you soon get used to it." It occurred to Ryan there was quite a lot of discomfort that he had to get used to already. But, after a few more plucks, he knew what was coming and was able to stop himself flinching. A few more plucks and Dawn stated she was happy with his eyebrows. He looked in the mirror ahead, and from his seat could see no great difference. But he certainly knew they had been plucked. "Now, let's give you a pretty face. Talia has told me what she is looking for. We going for a full glamour look, so buckle up." Dawn set to work using various brushes and sponges, liquids and powders, while Ryan sat silently in the chair and vowed to himself that he would not look in the mirror again until Dawn had finished. Before he arrived at the studio that morning, having his makeup done was one of the things he thought he would find strangest, but after the experience of having his hair set, he found he quickly settled to the attention of Dawn's magic hands. Indeed, aided by her running commentary on what she was doing and the general conversation in which they engaged, he, once again, realized that not only was he more relaxed than he ever thought he was going to be, but that he was somehow finding this a pleasant experience. He tried to figure out why this should be. But it was impossible to think it through, as, now, their initial reserve with each other ebbing away, a curious Dawn was getting a bit more inquisitive about the boy in her makeup chair. "So, have you ever used any makeup at all before? For a party, etc.? "No. Never. This is definitely a first." Although Dawn completely believed Ryan, she found it hard to believe that, given what he was attempting to do today and what he was allowing to be done to him, which is surely something virtually every other boy would run a mile from, he had never experimented with his obvious feminine side. But she decided not to take it any further. "Well, this is a first for me too. I've never made up a boy before, although I have to admit I've seen some boys that I secretly would have loved to do. Plus it's a little challenge to a beautician. Can I make a boy beautiful? So you've given me the opportunity to fulfill that. I was worried that I would be too big a challenge for whoever did my makeup. Well, I can tell you that everyone's face is different, but if I'm really honest, you're not providing the challenge I thought it might be. You're really no different or more difficult than any other female model I've worked with. Time for your eyes." Asking Ryan to tilt his head back, she began what turned out to be the most time-consuming part of the makeup job. Continually asking him to close or open his eyes, keep still, she worked with a steady hand with pencils and brushes and small sponges. Ryan knew he could not do this himself, but he realized that having his makeup done by Dawn was continuing to give him the same feeling that having his hair set in rollers had given him. Now as she was talking a little less, concentrating on his eye makeup, Ryan was becoming engulfed by a warm, peaceful serenity. Eventually, Dawn told him that she was going to apply mascara, and for a second a feeling of wonderment overcame him, that this most feminine of products was being used on him. How had this come about? But as the mascara brush was dancing above and below his thighs, he began to realize that not only was he feeling relaxed and calm about his makeover, he was actually enjoying the feeling of Dawn's close proximity and her working to make him look his best. He was enjoying the feeling of being pampered. A little lipstick now and we're nearly there. Give me a pout. Ryan thought the lipstick would come from a tube, the way he had seen his mother and many other women apply lipstick, but Dawn used a kind of pencil to outline his lips, and then it seemed to Ryan that she was almost painting his lips. It was not what he was expecting, and when Dawn declared herself finished, he closed his mouth, bringing his lips together. He was immediately aware of a new sensation around his mouth. He could feel the moistness. He knew he was wearing lipstick. He could feel it. Dawn stepped back. I've gone with a kind of berry red lipstick. I think you suit it, and it goes with the kind of look we're going for today. In a day of strange thoughts, Ryan pondered that he had a look today that implied he was capable of having different looks. He had only ever known the one look. The power of makeup, it seemed, gave women the ability to have more than one look, and it would appear, judging by Dawn's words, makeup would give Ryan the same feminine-like freedom. I've noticed that you haven't been looking in the mirror at all. Do you want to look now? All finished. I just need to go and fetch Talia. Left alone, Ryan looked at the wall just below the mirror, closed his eyes, then slowly lifted his head upright. He opened his eyes to be greeted by someone he had never seen before but with whom he was vaguely familiar. It took his breath away. After a few seconds he began to see Ryan in the background, but in the foreground was seemingly a strikingly attractive girl. Okay, a girl with her hair in rollers, covered by a pink hairnet but with a beautifully feminine face with immaculately done makeup. He was stunned to think that this person in the mirror was actually him. It was the strangest sensation. He was looking at a girl. Dawn returned with Talia and they found Ryan staring into the mirror, seemingly mesmerized. Talia spoke first. Well, what do you think then? I can hardly believe that's me in the mirror. Do you like what you see? Ryan didn't know how to answer this. He was amazed at how he looked, but truthfully, he hadn't had time to fully digest what he was seeing, never mind work out how it made him feel. But bizarrely, considering the reason he was sitting in the beautician's chair in the first place, he thought agreeing to liking what he saw might seem a strange thing for a boy to admit. Instinctively, he went with a more neutral reply. I'm a bit stunned. At least I think I don't look ridiculous. This time it was Dawn. Are you kidding? I'm not sure if I should be offended or not. Seriously, you look beautiful. I mean it. Take it from me. Ryan's senses were now struggling to cope. He was a boy, but he had just been called beautiful by a girl who knew what she was talking about. How is a boy supposed to feel, knowing he makes a beautiful-looking girl? Yes, I think we've proved 100% you've got what we hoped you would have. Now we just need to get you dressed, let Dawn finish your hair, and we can finally get you in front of the camera. Talia motioned for Ryan to follow her back to the changing area and asked Dawn to tell Andrew, who had finished setting up and had sat down with a cup of coffee and his mobile phone, that they would be ready shortly. As they crossed the floor, Talia mentioned to Ryan that Lynn had told her about his gynecomastia, but told him not to worry about it. They entered through the curtain where Lynn was already waiting with his first garments. Just slip the dressing gown off, will you? We're going to start with this first. He took off the robe and tried again to overcome the feeling of embarrassment. He stood as before with only the foundation garment to cover his maleness, but this time he had makeup on and his hair was in rollers. Lynn was walking towards him with a black garment over her arm. We're going to start simply today. Kind of ease you into it. I don't know how much you know about female fashion, so this is an ankle-length black satin shift dress with sweetheart neckline. It also has a slit down one side and an overlapping black mesh skirt. You're going to be able to step into it and I'll help you from there. Ryan stared at the dress and it struck home what he was about to do. For the first time in his life, and in the presence of two women he had just met this morning, he was going to don an article of female clothing and then to all intents and purposes demonstrate a feminine persona in front of a camera. In a minute he was going to be dressed in something these two women beside might wear. They were women, and he was a boy. Yet he was going to be wearing a dress. He was about to step into their feminine world. Lynn held the dress low and invited Ryan to step in, which he did. She began to ease the dress up and then asked Ryan to slip his arms through the spaces formed by the dress's narrow shoulder straps. She pulled the straps over Ryan's shoulders and continued to arrange the dress, finishing with some small satin buttons which passed through hanging loops at the back. She stepped back to get a better look at how the dress was fitting and turned to Talia, who was also eyeing Ryan up and down. Maybe a little loose at the waist? Lynn asked. Yes, I think so. Lynn went back towards Rack, picked up something and moved behind Ryan once more. He felt her doing something at his back, then the dress become a little tighter around his waist. He asked her what she was doing. I'm just using a couple of spring clips to gather the dress and pull it in at the waist. Makes it look a lot better. Obviously they'll not be seen in the pictures. A little trick that you can get away with in the studio. Talia was satisfied. That's much better. Let's get the shoes on. Take a seat, Ryan. Ryan moved to sit down, the dress somehow making him instinctively stand in front of the chair and smooth the dress out behind him. He was immediately struck by the feeling of how different it was to sit down and be seated while wearing a dress. He was aware of the dress tightening a little at his waist and of it flowing down over his legs, the right one of which was instantly exposed as the slit in the dress opened up. Lynn knelt before him, a pair of black strappy sandals in hand. Ryan took them in and struggled to comprehend that fact that he was about to wear them. These very feminine shoes were for him to wear. His senses were struggling to take in all that was happening to him this morning. Okay, Ryan, your shoe size is the one thing we did know, so these should fit you no problems. Lynn looked up at Ryan and smiled. There is a 3-inch heel on them, but since we assumed you don't have any experience walking in heels, they are block heels, so they are a little easier to walk in. Ryan's mind instantly flashed back to his brief encounter with his mom's high heels, but he decided that did not count as having experience. He nodded that he understood. He watched as Lynn placed the first sandal on his right foot. The sandal had 3 straps that lay across his instep, then one more that fastened above his ankle, the chunky heel informing him what a block heel was. The second followed, and as Ryan took in this vision he realized that he was shaking. He was now sitting with these two women, his hair in rollers, makeup on, and wearing a dress and ladies' sandals. He began to shiver and was briefly in sensory overload. Lynn was first to notice this change in Ryan and was quick to show concern. Are you okay, Ryan? Is there something wrong? Asked Talia. No, it's all right. I'm fine. He steadied himself and the shaking began to subside. What happened there? You were shaking all over, Lynn asked softly. I don't know for sure. I think I've just had so many new experiences and sensations already this morning, I was overcome by it all a little. I'm fine now. Honest. Talia was concerned. Are you sure now? Yes. I'm sure. Do you want to carry on? It's not too late to say this is not for you. Nobody wants you to do anything that you're not comfortable with. I know, but I really do want to carry on. Ryan tried to focus on the benefits he hoped modeling would bring to his mom and himself. "I'm 100% ready to carry. As I said, I'm just getting used to some new things." He smiled to reassure the ladies he was back in the game. "Do you want to stand up and try a little walk in the sandals, Ryan?" asked Lynn Shore. Ryan rose from the chair and began to circle the little changing room. It was certainly harder than walking in flat-soled shoes. The strange feeling of his heels been raised higher than his toes, making him have to adjust his body to compensate for the difference to his balance, but the thickness of the block heel meant that he was able to walk relatively steadily. However, Talia was quick to intervene. "Can you stop, please?" she said gently but firmly. "Ryan, I know this is all very new to you, and today we will only be taking still pictures, but if you walk correctly it will help get your mind in a place that will allow you to become the person you need to be in front of the camera or maybe even the catwalk. It will be a necessary skill to acquire for you to be convincing to those who are looking at you." "Sorry?" "Try walking differently. Hold your shoulders up and back. Walk as if you were on a gymnast's beam. One foot in front of the other. Let your arms swing loosely by your side. Relax your hands." Lynn chipped in. "The couple of boys who I've worked with have come to modeling already possessing, let's just say, a feminine persona. It was easy for them to show this to the camera and a great help if they moved on to catwalk." Talia carried on. "You definitely have the look, so we're going to have to work on expressing that. When you are modeling you need to try and think of yourself as female. Don't be afraid to act femininely. Right now, you're a girl." It suddenly occurred to Talia that Ryan not only hadn't seen the complete result of their morning's work so far, he had never, not once in his lifetime, seen himself as he looked at that moment. "Why don't you walk over to the mirror and see how you look?" "I'll give it a try." Ryan just couldn't stop himself thinking of all the new situations he had already encountered this morning, and now here was another. Feeling very self-conscious, he walked over to the mirror, trying his best to follow Talia's advice. "Much better," exclaimed Talia. "Not perfect by any means, but much better." Again, trying to avoid direct eye contact till the last moment, he focused his gaze just above the mirror until he arrived before it. Slowly looking down, he saw his reflection and gasped involuntarily. He stood transfixed, only his eyes moving up and down taking in the vision in front of him, from his roller-set hair down to ladle-like heels. He had seen his hair and face all too briefly when Dawn did his makeup, barely long enough to fully remember how he looked, but now he was looking at the fully dressed end result. A completely new set of emotions began to wash over him and he had to consciously fight to stop the shaking beginning again. He had a feeling that this person in the mirror was not him. That it could not possibly be him. This was someone else. A beautifully feminine girl. Slowly he managed to gather himself a little and no longer had to fight to stay in control of his body, but his mind was still racing. He had had no idea beforehand how he would look, but he had never expected to look so convincingly feminine, let alone pretty. Also, the nature of the sweetheart neckline of the dress allowed hints, if only slightly, of the swellings on his chest. What did his appearance at this moment say about the boy Ryan? He didn't know. He was also aware that there was a strange feeling, so vague that he didn't understand it or know how to express it in words, that he liked what he saw. The girls had remained silent as Ryan had taken in his first view of himself in his model role and had seen the looks on his face as he reacted to it. Talia spoke. "I take it you're happy with your first dress then?" she smiled. "Come on then, let's allow Dawn to finish her hair and then we can get you in front of the camera. Don't forget the walk now, Ryan." Ryan and Talia headed back to the hair and makeup station, Ryan making a determined effort to channel his inner girl, and he was stunned to find the fit of the dress. Its movement on his body somehow assisted him with this goal. Dawn, who had been sitting in the chair in front of the mirror, became aware of Ryan and Talia heading towards her in rows and turned to watch them approach. A big smile appeared on her face. "Wow. Look at you now. You look fantastic. And look at how you are moving. That's not the Ryan who turned up here this morning. I just see a glamorous girl. Sit down and let's get these rollers out and complete this fabulous transformation." Ryan did as he was told, his mind whirling, trying to cope with the praise of looking good and of it seeming as though he was looking good enough to at least go in front of a camera, but almost overwhelmed by the knowledge he was looking good as a girl. Dawn set about removing the rollers and Ryan found himself, strangely, regretting their removal. How can that be? But then he remembered the sensations he had encountered when Dawn had been roller setting his hair. How he had been very nervous, but had relaxed and finally enjoyed the experience. And how he felt when he first saw the completed set. Despite himself, he had enjoyed what he had seen. And now they were being removed. He found himself wondering if this was an experience that would ever happen in his life again. Dawn had been unpinning the rollers one by one and gently removing them, taking care to unroll them, not pull them out. Surprisingly sad to be seeing and feeling the rollers leave his hair, Ryan began to wonder, also surprisingly, what his hair would look like when Dawn was finished. He was now excited to see his hair in a feminine style and to see it combined with his makeup and dress, and he admitted to himself this was a feeling, sensation, he had not anticipated when he had arrived this morning. Yes, he knew, he was going to be transformed somewhat to help him portray a female persona, but he hadn't anticipated coming to enjoy the process of the transformation and his eagerness to see the result. Soon the rollers were out and Dawn began using her hands and fingers to run them through his hair. She then told Ryan she was using a hot brush just to set in and emphasize the curls. Ryan sat quietly, avoiding looking directly at the mirror, enjoying the sensation of having the brush roll his hair. Eventually Dawn declared herself satisfied and with a final flourish of a sweet-smelling hairspray, told Ryan he could look now. This time, he had no patience. He immediately looked into the mirror and gasped, a reaction that was certainly noted by Dawn and Talia, who had now been joined by Lynn. The look was complete. Dawn had given Ryan a loosely defined parting just slightly off-center and to the right. His hair tumbled down on both sides of the parting in loose but definite curls that framed his face. Dawn chimed. "Well, don't you look pretty? Pretty sensational if I say so myself. What do you think? I'm stunned. You've made me look like a girl. I didn't think I was going to look anything like this." He continued to stare in the mirror. Talia interrupted Ryan's thought. "You know something, Ryan, I don't think this will be last time you'll have your hair in rollers, perfect makeup, and a pretty dress on. But there's only one way to find out. Let's get you in front of the camera and see if we can capture the girl in you." And much to Ryan's surprise, as he walked over towards the area set up for the shoot, he became aware that there seemed to be a part of him that was very comfortable with his feminized self, and he wondered if perhaps it had always been there waiting to be released. Something had been awakened in him this morning and he was not sure exactly what. But he already felt he didn't want this to be a one-time affair. For the first time he felt desperate to succeed on this shoot. Could he be a boy, but portray femininity to the camera? He was about to find out.